use this Wirecast. I thought I had it all figured out for a while. Now I'm not so sure, but we shall see. Hopefully it's working. There it is. Okay. I always say this when I start that there's a delay. When I press the stream button on my screen, it doesn't appear on your screen for about 20 seconds. So whatever you hear me saying, I said it like 20 seconds ago. And so that's why sometimes there is a bit of a delay between, me answering questions thing. There's just a delay between us. I was, of course, first in there here tonight. But we got Concha a little bit, Carrie, James, Jasmine, Cherie with the wrench, LaFord, Tammy, Ashley. Thanks to everybody who is tuning in tonight. Carol, hello, how are you? And Susan, good to see you. And of course, we have some things to talk about. Really, one thing in particular that, of course, just popped up today regarding a case that Unfound covered not quite a year ago, I guess maybe October of last year. We're going to be talking a little bit about that, give you my insights on that, but we're not quite ready to go. Yeah, I'm a little early. Anne and Rick and Layla, good to see all of you. Tonight we're all in here a little bit early, and I guess what happens is you see that there's a live YouTube feed going on from Unfound, and that's how you end up tuning in. So I try to always get in here a little early just to make sure technically we are ready to go. I was reading something about how Apple is changing some of their protocols and everything on their phones, which I'm guessing is going to be trouble for some of you in viewing videos and viewing live stuff. That's the way I understand it. So I'm wondering how that's going to affect any of you who watch this show or are involved in the think tank and do so from your phones. I don't know. You're going to probably have to look into that. And I know that even earlier this year, there have been some changes that on iPhones that make it a little more difficult to figure out, how to comment and how to tune in and things. At least that's what I've been told. I don't have an iPhone. I've never had an iPhone. I'm an Android guy, but I do have, of course, a MacBook that I use to make all of the episodes. Valerie and Mimi and Miranda and Mandolin. How's everybody doing? Thanks you for tuning in. It is 9 o'clock, so let's officially get this started. It was a beautiful day here in Clearwater Beach, Florida. I went out for a little bit, and it's good to see all of you. It was very hot today, as you would expect in early August. I had to mail off a few things today, and those people that will be receiving those things, they've been patient. But I told the three of them that they should be expecting something in their mailbox, probably not this week, maybe sometime next week. And there will be other packages that will be going out very soon as well. Pamela, Joey, everybody, good to see you tonight. I need to send out some birthday wishes first to one of my best friends of all time. His name is Doug. Actually, he is the guy. He is actually the guy that went with me to the Iron Maiden concert back on July 24th. A guy who I've known since we were in elementary school. And he's also going to be going with me and my dad. And actually, Doug is going to be taking his son. And we're all going to Canada fishing at the beginning of September. So his birthday is today, August 7th. And actually, one of my ex-girlfriends who I'm still friends with, her name is Suzanne. Her birthday is today, and I actually talked to her too. I called her and wished her a happy birthday. That's the kind of guy I am. I'm thinking maybe she was a little surprised, but we are cordial and friendly, and I called to wish her a happy birthday as well. Us Leos, those late July, early August people, we got to stick together. So there's that. And thank you for all the birthday wishes last Thursday when my birthday, August 1st. I deeply appreciate all of it. Sharon, my birthday was good. It wasn't pretty much a day different than any other. I did Unfound work, and I got a pizza, and I got some garlic bread, and I got some French fries, and I pigged out. That's what I did for my birthday. Didn't spend it with anybody. Hey, I'm a hermit. I'm not afraid to admit that. So I would just spend it here at home, which is just fine with me. Blaze, what's going on? Michelle, Tamara, Charmin. Hey, Charmin, how are you? Everybody in the group, there's Charmin, the woman who put together the Amarillo meetup. And Charmin, it's so good to see you. And I hope you're doing well over there in Texas. Good to see you. So I wanted to wish Doug a happy birthday, and I wanted to wish Suzanne a happy birthday. Also, Leo's rock. Tammy says her birthday is the 19th. They do rock. I agree. I'm not even into astrology or anything, Tammy, but there is something. I have to tell you, and around this time of year, I always feel like I need to talk about it. Looking at the girlfriends that I've had, most of them have been Leos, and I didn't even know that when I met them. I've dated a woman who her birthday was August 5th. My ex-girlfriend Suzanne was August 7th. I had an ex-girlfriend Janie whose birthday was August 11th. I don't know. It's a little strange. And then I actually went out a couple times when I lived in Las Vegas with a woman who was born the day before me. Her birthday was July 31st, 1970. I was born a day later. So I don't know what that is. It's just a little strange. Hello, Charmin, the mystery van. That's interesting. I love all those emojis. The mystery van. Paula and Anne, and we've got some Leos in here. I love it. I love it. Okay, good. Nina's birthday is on the 12th. All right, Pamela. Okay, July 27th for Pamela. Leo convention. It does seem like that. I love it. But thank you for all the birthday wishes last Thursday. But it was very, very low key, and it was a little bit different this year because I would have to say the last several years I've been in Pennsylvania for my birthday. I've gone up to see my parents. Of course, my mother died last year, but so I didn't go up there this year. Of course, my dad was just here in June. So this was the first birthday I spent in a while not in Pennsylvania. It's been quite a few years. So, but it was fine. March, baby. Charmin is a Pisces. That's okay, Charmin. That's okay, Charmin, because I went out, and I'm still very good friends with, but a woman that I've, dated a few times way back in the day and stuff. Her birthday was March 1st. So I hear what you're saying there, Charmin. I know all about Pisces too. So we got now an astrology thing going on here. How did I know that was going to happen? But speaking of August 1st, you should have gotten your newsletter, and we're going to be talking a little bit about the newsletter here in a moment. But if you are on the email list, you should have gotten your newsletter last Thursday. That's something that I worked on my birthday, but I ended up getting it done, and I was happy about that. We'll see how next month's goes because September 1st, I'm going to be at a disc golf tournament. So I guess I'm going to have to work on that newsletter before I get into that. But if you think you're on the list, you should have gotten your newsletter last Thursday evening. And if you're on the list and you didn't get it, please check your spam folder. If you'd like to be on the list, of course, contact me privately and I can make that happen. There's a slight echo. All right, well, let me do this. Let me turn this down just a little bit. And this is why I hate this Wirecast thing. Let me see if Nina will see if that helps any. I do know that once in a while we do have some echoes with what using Wirecast. Sometimes it's completely out of my control. So there's the newsletter, and my birthday was good. Let's talk about this. Something that I have been mentioning in the, and I should say this: I didn't really get any questions before tonight's show about anything. I know there were some Tom Brown questions that were posted in the group, but I think Penny answered them already. So if you have any questions that have nothing to do with Thomas Brown's case, anything else, please let me know. Please let me know that if you'd like me to answer any questions about anything that is going on. Doesn't have to be missing persons related. Any questions along those lines, I'll be happy to answer them. At least a couple questions. We can't get too crazy. One person asking 5 questions or 6 questions. But now somebody's saying, please don't turn down. Struggling to hear. Karen, you may have to just turn it up a little bit. I just trying to mess with this a little bit. And that may be as good as it's going to get right at this second. I turn it up and the echo starts. I turn it down and nobody hears. I can hear it. That's just the way it is. I'll try to speak up some, Karen. Pamela, any news on the rap case? Not to my knowledge, Pamela. Not to my knowledge. So I want to talk about behind the scenes. Let me see, maybe if I get my voice closer to the microphone, that'll be better. I've mentioned this in the last few newsletters, that there are things going on behind the scenes, things that, of course, I oversee anything. I mean, it's I control everything. But we have some investigations. I'd call them, to just put it in a general category of investigations that are going on behind the scenes. I, of course, have been working on one for a while now. Cherie has been gathering some information on a case, a disappearance case, that we hope to cover somewhere down the road, but we didn't want to cover it without getting more background and things. So Cherie has been doing some things. And then Dr. Eric Grabowski has actually filed some FOIAs regarding a case, and I think he's still waiting for to get that information. And I do believe that he's going to get it. But I think what I'm saying is that we're trying to do more than just report on these cases and talk to people who know the most. We're actually trying to help some of these people in doing things that we know how to do because we have the experience to track down people who were interviewed at the time, to see if maybe things were left out, to see if their stories are the same, of course, if their stories changed. And so it's more than just, I think, a podcast at this point, for sure. And of course, we do these things for free. Cherie and these other people, they do it in their spare time, and I deeply appreciate that. And, and really, that's all that, the time that needs to be put in. Just a few hours here and there, emailing people, contacting people, calling people. It doesn't have to be, 60 hours a week or anything. So that these people are putting in just a few hours here and there, you'd be amazed over time how much work that can get done. And that's just not with what we do, but with anything. Just putting in a few hours here and there. And that's something that we've kind of added to our repertoire within the last few months. And in fact, I have another woman who is doing some things for me as well. Her name is Raina, and she's already gathered some information in one case that I know we're going to eventually cover but I think that this disappearance is related to some other disappearances. So I had her getting some contact information, trying to find some contact information for me, and so that there's that. So and these are things that the families might have done at one time or they never did it, but that we have this information. I think that eventually, when these cases are covered, we can even do a better representation of them than would do if we were just talking to, like we usually do, someone's mother, someone's sister, brother, someone's child. I think we'll be able to give better background, and who knows, along the way, I'm hoping we discover some things that are not known, and already we've done that. So, we've been doing that behind the scenes, and like I said, in the last few newsletters, I've put a behind the scenes section in there, and that section is going to continue to be in there. I just hope all of you understand when that is posted and when it's put in there that I can't tell you everything that's going on, and I hesitate to even mention what the cases are because it may be that these cases aren't covered for quite some time. But that's what we're doing. Valerie says, it was so nice to see the news clip. You do so much for missing people. Valerie, as far as it was all Charmin who arranged for the media to be there. And I was happy to talk to them. And that was great. I thought it went well. Tamara, I was wondering if they have any more news on the Marco Island 3. That was a disappearance that struck me since I live off the coast of central Queensland. Not to my knowledge, Tamara, and I've not talked to Dave Madot's father, Bill, in a while. Not to my knowledge. I would hope it's been like 25 years now. That's a case where it would be nice if somebody could get a group of scuba people together, boating people together, and go out there and try to recreate. I know it was done once, allegedly, way back when. I'd just like to see it for myself now that I know what the disappearance is, and I think I understand the basics of it. I'd like to talk to people who could recreate it and get their real opinions on what happened. That would, but not to my knowledge, but it's certainly one that it seems to me that the guy's story about what he said happened could be disproven fairly easily if, some people went out there, experts, and tried to recreate what he said happened. Happy says, I love how you get more investigative stuff done than other podcasts who just read a story already in print somewhere. That's what we try to do, Happy. We're not trying to rip anybody off here. We're trying to get news for ourselves. We're trying to do it original here. Thank you, Charmin. Thank you, Karen. Charmin, Cherie, so much more than just a podcast. You guys would be surprised the amount of time and effort goes into these cases. Cherie is telling the truth. Jasmine, what is your opinion on the couple in Canada? Murder suspects found. You mean the guys that they're dead now? I saw that you mean the two young men who were out in the wild, and the Canadian were sending like their special forces out into the wilderness to find them? Jasmine, is that what you mean? I did see that. I did see that they're dead. That's about all I saw, Jasmine. I don't know if these guys died of exposure or did they commit suicide, or I don't know. I don't know, Jasmine. I don't know much more than that, if that's what you're talking about. Shaney, what's going on? Michelle, I know because I've been on the phone or texting with several of you working with Unfound, and Emily and I have countless hours for sure. Yeah, that's definitely for sure, Michelle, and your involvement in Brandy's disappearance. That's for sure. Not found. I'm Ferrando. I think they passed. Okay. Hey, Whitney. Whitney is in the house. I love saying that. Jasmine is okay. So that's what you were talking about, Jasmine. The those guys in Canada. Yeah, I don't know. Really, I've not been able to follow that very closely, Jasmine. But I have to say, I'm at least a little surprised that they're deceased. I'm surprised given their reputation. I thought there might be a shootout or something. But I don't know what to say about that. It may be that they thought they were cornered and they knew that they were going to be in big trouble and were going to get caught and just decided to off themselves. And I don't know if we should be surprised by that. I mean, how many, being that mass shootings have been in the news, we know how many of those mainly men, young men that do that end up shooting themselves too. So maybe we shouldn't be surprised that those two guys are dead and maybe haven't been shot, but by somebody else, but killed themselves. Devi, what's going on? Um, Shaney asked me, would you ever cover the Brandon Lawson case? Shaney, we would, and I can even tell you that I know that Emily at one point was talking to somebody in the family. I forget who it was. Just to be honest, it's been a few months. Things just didn't come together, and that's really all I can say about that. I'm not saying I know Emily's spoken to somebody there a few months ago because his name has been brought up before. And Rachel, what's going on? Um, but that's really all I really can say about that Shaney. Uh, there was just some things that I just guess we couldn't get together on, and of course, that case has been covered in a couple different places recently, and I don't like doing cases and covering a disappearance right after somebody else has done it. I don't want anybody else in any program to feel like I'm ripping them off or trying to ride their coattails or anything. So once another program does that disappearance, I feel like I have to wait a while before Unfound, does it. So there's that. Indy, what's going on? Getting back to behind the scenes, that's something that's going to continue. I don't know how many of those types of things we can manage behind the scenes. I think, being that I'm working on something, Eric's working on something, Cherie is working on something, and I have this new person, Raina, who's working on something. I think that's plenty for now, I think. Because once again, even though these others are doing the work, I have to kind of oversee what they're doing and ask questions. Hey, what's going on here? And there's only so much I can manage. So I don't see us getting into any more than that, but we'll just have to see. Just don't want to make any promises regarding that. But I can assure you that we're doing some things that other podcasts aren't doing. Debbie says, I think the Brandon Lawson case is really solvable as well. I don't know about that, but it certainly has gotten a lot of attention. KM says, finally catching you live. Well, thanks for tuning in, KM, for the first time. It's good to have you. So that's behind the scenes. Just want to keep you informed of that. Because if anybody sees the newsletters they're reading, what is this behind the scenes thing? Well, that's what it is. And speaking of which, behind the scenes, I can't even tell you what kind of week this has been. Unfortunately, once again, I try to tell you as much as I can about anything that myself, Emily, Cherie, or anybody else is doing. We try to tell you as much as we can without sacrificing the trust that people put in us. But I can tell you, there's been a lot going on this week. I've spent a lot of time on the phone this week trying to push some things forward. Um, I, I've gotten a little impatient, and that shouldn't be a surprise because I would not say that I'm the most patient guy in the world. I'm not. I try to be patient, and maybe some things I am patient on, other things not so patient. But I think it's to the point now where we have to start pushing things a little more. And so certainly the last couple days, Monday, Tuesday, has been all about that. Um, and maybe we'll get some results from that. Where, like I said, I've been waiting for people outside of the Unfound circle for people to do things that I think should be done, and they aren't done. And I finally decided, kind of this past, maybe last week, that I think I'm going to have to start pushing a few more buttons. And I wish I could tell you more. But we'll see where it goes. I think it's probably going to be a little while before there's any results from it, if there are any. But I've just become a little impatient with some things that I thought should be done by other people. And we just decided, you know what, we're just going to do it for ourselves. So there's that. Maybe as far as the Delphi murders go, I've not seen anything. I get the feeling that police are completely confounded and stumped and puzzled on that case. I mean, they had one sketch, and then they brought out another sketch. You know, I don't know. Once again, it seems like a case that would be solved pretty quickly, but this is how these things surprise you. Um, uh, Carrie says, "Oh, buttons! I like pushing buttons." Well, um, we're probably pushing some buttons, Carrie, and there's just some things that need to be looked into, and nobody's done it, whether they are trying to avoid it or they're scared or whatever else. And I just needed to take it. I hate this cliche, but I needed to take it to the next level. It's a little frustrating because I get easily frustrated when it's so clear what needs to be done and nobody's doing it. I can't even begin to tell you how frustrated I get with things like that. And so I had to assert my authority maybe a little bit, and that's what I did. But so that's kind of behind the scenes stuff that's going on as well. Let's move to last Friday's case with the disappearance of Tammy Mckittrick. And I'm sure you saw the post that Murray put in the discussion group. Was it on Saturday, I guess, or Sunday? And I'll talk about that in a second. But let's talk about the poll first in that was in the group. A large majority of the listeners who took part in the poll believe that Robert Mckittrick had something to do with his wife's disappearance. I think that's a very sensible position. Of course, I think that it's mostly circumstantial, unfortunately, but it's certainly something I can understand why people answered it that way. And yeah, haven't listened yet. Debbie says she hasn't listened yet. Well, you got to listen to it, Debbie. You got to do that. Thank you, LaFord. And I can't say that I'm exactly surprised by the results. And then Murray posted in the group, and I saved it. It is an announcement. You don't have to go scrolling. If you haven't seen it yet, you don't have to go scrolling the whole way down in the discussion group on Facebook to find it. It's an announcement. It's right there at the top. And I really can't disagree with anything that she said. I've had a few back and forths with Murray since then. And as any guest who's ever been on the program knows, once you are Unfound, you are allowed to post. Guests are allowed to post in the group now. They can post virtually anything. And then I do allow like commentary that Murray did. And as far as like bloggers, like Anthony from Crime Blogger 1983, like Heather, and we're going to talk about Heather Grotman in a moment. Those people who are on the program, they also, once they're on Unfound, they're allowed to post virtually anything about what they're doing about cases in the group. So I personally have no problem with Murray posting what she did, and I really can't disagree with anything that she said. And I think, in reading that, this is why I tried to stress in my part of the episode that I do understand. When Murray says that her father was a good guy and a good father, I believe her. I have no problem with that. If she says it, I believe it. But I think what I think the rest of us think is that even if he was a good father and everything else, that doesn't excuse if he murdered Tammy. Okay, and once again, as as I say on any program, I don't. All I do is ask the questions. Okay, that's all I do. And the guests know what we're going to talk about because they have an interview outline. I get these things pre-approved before we talk about them. And this kind of goes back to the Juanita Nelson case, where after the fact, her sister kind of gave me a hard time. And I'm not saying Moraes did that. She didn't. She hasn't. She's not done that for a second. And I don't even think she feels about me that way. But I think what does happen sometimes is that when these guests tell the truth and then maybe they hear themselves talking, they don't, it becomes, I think, very real for them. And I think maybe that's, what it's one thing to, in the back of your head think that your father did something, but then to hear yourself being interviewed and answering those questions and answering them truthfully, and then hearing your own words and what you're saying, that I think that, is something totally different. Uh, but I think that Murray told the truth in everything that she, talked about, and her truth, the truth that she told, leads people to believe that her father is involved. And now I will tell you, in the think tank on Sunday night, we did talk a lot about that, but we talked about some other things. We talked about the possibility that she did take that $8,000 and run off. Now that I think I understand more about college loans and grants and what was going on there, that certainly I certainly have to entertain that idea a little bit more. I'll admit that we even talked about the possibility that her brother was involved in the disappearance, but Murray says that he was at school. I believe her. So we threw around some different ideas in the think tank on Sunday night. But I have no problem with her posting what she did, and but I think once again, on the other hand, I think that she has to understand that this isn't personal. People believing that her father might be involved in everything is not personal. It's just our job is to listen to the facts that are presented and make a decision and come to a conclusion based on the facts, not on rumors, conjecture, and just theories because we want to theorize. But we're just listening to what she says and like trying to figure out what makes the most sense. And that's all, that's all we're trying to do. So once again, I had no problem with her posting that. I have no problem with any guest posting anything in the group, even if sometimes I disagree with it. Even with what happened in the Juanita Nelson case, even though I disagreed with it, and it frankly ticked me off a little bit, I would never erase that or delete it or anything else. Okay, that's not the kind of person that I am. So if you haven't seen that statement that Murray wrote, please go to the discussion group and you can read it for yourself. Something else, moving on to something else. If you don't know it, I actually took the time today. There have now been, this Friday will be the 157th episode of Unfound. 157. I just, I can't even begin to tell you how crazy that is. I don't know if I even thought about getting to 157 cases when I started. I think that I've told this story many times that when I started this program, that I didn't really know where it was going to go. I really had no idea. None. Zero. Just thought this was a good idea, and now here we are starting the fourth year. So up to this point, this Friday will be the 157th episode. But as you know, some of the episodes didn't actually cover cases. I interviewed some other podcasters. I interviewed like Caroline Lowe. I interviewed Tad Tobias. But this Friday will be the 140th disappearance we've covered. That would include like Flight 370, for example. Now, the amount of people that we've covered, of course, it's many. Of course, Flight 370 had how many passengers on it? And then we have like an episode like Daniel Braden, um, uh, um, Jansen Brewer case. We, of course, had Laura Bible and Ashley Freeman in one case. We have the Marco Island 3 in one case. So even though this will be 140 disappearances on Friday, the amount of people's disappearances that we've covered is huge. It's just a huge, huge number. It's crazy. It's crazy. Um, Blaze says the thing that gets me, Tammy, that thing that gets me, Tammy had issues that she needed meds for. It could be Blaze. We didn't get in. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if she had any mental issues or. I mean, I know that's been talked about, but it didn't come up in the interview. Cherie says, I guess you can be a good father and a murderer, but it's hard for most of us to separate the two. It is. It is. That's true, Cherie. Valerie, thank you. Blaze says if she's alive after she left, Tammy could be traced as somebody who would run her social security number. Blaze, I think that's been done. I'm going to guess that that's been done at least once or twice, and I don't think it's popped up anything. Nina says it's not even that hard to separate. People are different people to their children and to their partners and their friends. Nina says. Nina specifically, especially someone who has ties to the mob, I can see that being possible. Cherie is saying it's hard for me to say he was a good father if he killed their mother. Mm-hmm. Right. But so this Friday will be disappearance 140. Concha, their property is pretty big, Concha, because they had a farm on it, and we talked about the different kinds of animals and everything. It's a pretty big property, and I don't know if we ever did give out the address for it. I don't know if we ever did that, but and looking at a satellite view in it, it's pretty big. Carrie says, I agree, you can be. Just covered a case a week ago that suspected both was. I don't know what that means, Carrie. So I just wanted to give you an update on how many cases we're into. I think I've been saying I've covered 130 cases. Well, I guess I can now say we've covered 140 cases. And that's fairly impressive. I know, for example, The Vanished has covered more than Unfound has, but I think that Marissa started like 8 months or 9 months before we started. So that would make sense that she's probably covered more than we have. But I think that since then, being that I haven't missed a week, only a few weeks here and there, that I have to think that nobody's covered any more missing persons cases than I have or Unfound has in the last 3 years. Because starting here at the beginning of August, we're now entering the beginning of season 4. And that's why in the beginning of September, you will be seeing the third anniversary show of Unfound coming out. Thank you, Charmin. I agree. Thank you. Kamisha Hollis, I will tell you, and once again, I can't say too much, but Tanya said, I'm watching the replay. My birthday is, you're kind of catching up, Tanya. That's fine. August 12th. That's a great birthday, Tanya. Kamisha Hollis, I got to talk to Caprice finally yesterday. We had tried to talk when I was driving to Amarillo, but the cell phone service just wasn't good enough. So we finally talked yesterday. I cannot talk about everything that we talked about, but let's just put it this way. There is a lot of stuff that the police discovered that was not covered in the interview. Do I feel bad about that? I guess kind of. But, when you cover these cases that are so new, of course, Kamisha disappeared April of 2018. And then, of course, Marvin Young was arrested at the beginning of June. It stands to reason, especially when somebody's been arrested, it stands to reason there's going to be evidence and things that we're not going to know about. And I think that Caprice and I did it to the best of our ability. But in looking back at it now, I can understand why the prosecutors have charged him with murder. I really don't go into it. In fact, I'm sure some of the thing, that I'm sure the prosecutors and other people don't want this stuff getting out. So I'm just going to have to leave it at that. That I think I was right in saying that they better have more than we talked about in the episode if they hope to bring a case against Marvin Young. And that answer is a definite yes. But even so, Kamisha's remains have not been found. A lot of other things have been found and discovered, but her body has not been found. So I finally got to talk to Caprice, and that's really all I can say about it. And in fact, I'm sure that she knows more than what she even told me yesterday, and that's fine. Karen, it makes such a huge difference when your interviewees be articulate and honest. Well, um, Paula says there was just a hearing for Marvin. This was just a hearing for Marvin, right? Yes, it was, and it was like 2 weeks ago. Seems like yesterday, Paula. But that actually happened the day I was driving to Amarillo, which would have been July 23rd. So that was over 2 weeks ago. I just don't know where time is going. It goes so fast. But getting back to Karen, it makes such a huge difference when your interviewees be articulate and honest. I try to, I try to make it as easy on my guests as possible. We go over the information. I put together an interview outline. I get it pre-approved. We know what we're going to talk about. I insist that that's the best way to do these interviews, and I will always believe that. In contrast to just talking to them and then splicing in questions afterwards, which I think a lot of people do. I just don't like that at all. I just don't like it. So, but I appreciate that, Karen. That I think that my guests are honest. I think they are. I think that I get to know them and try to check into some things that they say. I'm not going to say that every guest has been one. I'm not going to say there hasn't been one or two lies on Unfound since it got started, but I do believe that for the most part, the guests come on here and they answer the questions truthfully, and really they have no reason to lie. Nobody has any reason to lie on this program. Emily says, out of all the cases that I've been involved in that have been on Unfound, I think Tammy Mckittrick's case is one where there is definitely a chance you run off. That's funny you look at that. It's not funny. It's interesting that you look at it that way, Emily. Okay. Carrie says, one guy was a good dad, but probably still killed his girlfriend. Emily, as I think about it, I haven't thought that strongly about any of the other cases. That's interesting, Emily, and you would know that more than anybody since you're the first person to contact most of these people. Articulate is not a requirement, but honesty is. Well, Sheree, it certainly helps if they're articulate. It certainly helps. I think Karen, I feel there are times when you have to pull teeth at times. You ask with respect the hard questions. Yeah. I have to admit there have been a couple interviews that I did, and I would not necessarily say that the people weren't articulate, but they had um, accents or something that probably are not the easiest to understand. It's not, once again, it's not, that's the way people talk in their area, and that's fine. But I have run into that a little bit where I've done a few interviews where I really, really had to listen closely. But it was not because the people couldn't speak English. It was just that, once again, an accent, Southern drawl, whatever you want to call it, was a little difficult for my ears. Ashley says, I've noticed that too. I don't understand why some guests have a difficult time answering questions when they know what they're going to be asked. Well, Ashley, the thing is, Ashley, you have to understand something that they don't necessarily know what I'm going to ask. It's not like I type out all the questions and give it to them. I give them an outline that has sample questions on it, but if something comes up during an interview that catches my ear, then I'm going to ask about it, and it may be something we haven't talked about before. It's very possible. And in fact, you'll hear me say sometimes, I'll even tell you, well, hey, I'm hearing this for the first time. Well, the only reason that happens is because I ask a question that goes in that particular direction, and the person may be a little surprised by it. You have to remember that some of these disappearances are old, and you have to remember that. I don't type out every question for them. I give them an outline on the general topic. But if they answer something that I think that needs clarification, then I'm going to do follow-up questions like any reporter would. Blaze, I think it's very hard to explain a loved one drug addiction if the interviewee does not understand the drug culture. It's true. Emily, I talked to someone earlier. She was country. I laughed at the way she said certain words. Well, that's funny, Emily. Charmin, I can't remember, and please forgive me. My mind lost my mind. Have you looked at the Charlotte Poehler case? I have. That was Charmin. That was in the first year of Unfound from Girard, Ohio. Yes, I have, and I had her brother on. Yes. That episode, I'm going to say, came out in March of 2017, Charmin. Yeah. Yeah. Cherie says, maybe you should explain the interview process. Um, not sure I want to get into it tonight, but all I can say is that, all of the interviews are pre-recorded. The guests know what we're going to talk about. I give them an outline a few days beforehand to look over, and it's all it is the information that we've talked about in an organized fashion, organized order. But I give them sample questions in the outline, but that doesn't mean that's all of the questions I'm going to ask them. Because once again, even though there's an outline, I still am not sure how everything is going to go. And so I try to be on my feet, on my toes to jump in with something if I think that it needs clarification or I think the listeners are going to want more information in that area. So that may be sometimes why the listeners or the guests might sound a little stumped or something like that. And I always reassure them, even when I'm talking to them off air, that it's okay to say they don't know something. Because when somebody says, I don't know something, then it gives us an opportunity to look into it. I never want a guest to be afraid to say, I don't know. Because it's by saying I don't know that we can begin to learn things. All right, then we can see where the holes are in the case. And, I'm just not always going to ask questions where I think I know what the answer is. And I'm not going to ask questions that only the person knows. It may be I ask a lot of questions and the people don't know the answer. Paula says it must be very difficult to talk about a missing loved one, even if they have told the story many times. Paula, I have to agree. You're welcome, Karen. Charmin says, thanks, I'm tired and my brain is checked out. That's okay, Charmin. Karen, sorry, I thought you interview them first, then call back to do the interview we listened to. Well, that is true. Karen, you're right. Sorry, I thought you interviewed them first. Well, I don't interview them. We have a talk. Okay, we have a conversation. I don't interview them when I talk to them the first time. Just two people talking back and forth. They ask me about what I do because they don't know me most of the time. They ask me about what I do, what the program does, how everything works, They ask about prior cases. Have any of them been solved? And yada, yada, yada. And then I, of course, ask them about, anything that I can think of. So it's not an interview the first time, it's a conversation. Then I gather up all that information, look at it, look into some things. I think if I have to, go back to them with more questions. And then somewhere in there, an outline gets made. So Karen, you're right, but I would not say that I interview them first. It's just a talk. We're just two people talking. We're just two people talking, and then we get together on when the interview is going to be done after they've looked at the outline and are comfortable with it. Thank you, Marcus. Question: what circumstances determine if the FBI gets involved in a missing persons case? Marcus, I think that's a fantastic question. They usually get involved if it's many times if it's children, or if it's believed somebody has been kidnapped and taken across state lines. They got, I mean, just to show you how it's a little unpredictable, in the Ashley Freeman Laura Bible case, the FBI got involved in that case just because the FBI just happened to be in Oklahoma, a lot of them for something else. That's how they got involved in that case. Probably not a case that would be covered by the FBI, but was just because there were FBI agents in the area at the time. Now, officially, the FBI does have its standards. Of course, the FBI will get involved if it's believed that there is some sort of corruption in the police department, things like that. They'll get involved. But I think that it can be very, narrowed down to any kidnapping across state lines, kids, or if it's believed that the disappearance has something to do with like the mob or something like that, that's generally considered to be a national crime type of thing. But the FBI, it's missing persons cases are not their main job. It's other stuff. And of course, these days it's all about terrorism and things like that. Missing persons cases are not high on their list. Blaze, Ed, would you consider putting in your? Would you consider putting in? Would you consider putting in your temp on the day that person goes missing, like 78 degrees, rainy day? I don't even know how to answer that question, Blaze. That may help. That may help somehow. Knowing what the weather on a day that a person disappears, I guess it may be helpful. You're gonna have to give me some follow up information on that, Blaze, as to why you're asking that. I'm a little stumped by that. Okay, Indy got put in timeout. Yeah, stay tuned. Cherie says stay tuned for the update episode. Yes, there's an update episode coming out the beginning of September. I haven't picked what Friday yet necessarily. But yes, another update episode is coming the beginning of September, and I surely will have some things to talk about. In fact, I have it right here on my list. I know that we'll, of course, be talking about Tom Brown. We'll be talking about Peggy and Patty McDaniel. We'll, of course, be talking about Laura Bible and Ashley Freeman. We'll be talking about Mary Lands, Jansen Brewer, Daniel Braden, Amanda Fravel. I think those are some of the cases right now that are surely on my list. Valerie says, my point of view, most guests take a bit of time with math type questions like what year and date did that happen? That's understandable. Sometimes maybe I do surprise them with those. Yeah, how old were their kids at the time? And I understand there's going to be a little bit of pausing there. That's fine. Karen, you mentioned my good Unfound's good work on Gray Hughes. I wish I knew what Gray Hughes is, Karen. Maybe you'll have to explain that to me. Yes, Sharia Amanda Fravel is going to be a part of that. Okay, let's get to this. Man, this hour is flying. The Dale Carrick Kerstetter video. If you saw earlier today, or maybe even happened yesterday, they have finally released the official video from the night the Dale Kerstetter vanished from that glass plant in Corning, in Pennsylvania, in what was it, 1987, 1988. Of course, that's a case that Unfound covered back in October of last year, and the guest was Heather Grotman, who runs a very good blog. And I know that earlier today she posted about it in the group, and I hope you will check her links out, and I hope you'll check out the video for yourself. Um, the video is bad. there's no there's no two ways about it. It is about the worst security cam video that I've ever seen. Ever, 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 ever. Oh, is that Stacy Gray Hughes is a true crime YouTube channel very involved in the Delphi case? Uh, Thank you for telling me that, Stacy. I really, truthfully, had no idea. But that video is out now. What was it? Muckrock.com filed the FOIAs to get it, and after 30 some years, the video is now public, and I'm not sure it's going to be helpful at all. Heather and I talked about it earlier today, and I'd given her, we talked about it a little bit. I gave my opinion on it, maybe what could be done to kind of clean it up and everything. And I'm not saying she's going to do it. I'm going to get somebody maybe try to do it. Somebody who's really good with video can try to do something. But as it sits, it's not helpful at all. And in fact, it kind of leads me to believe the reason we haven't seen the video is because the video is so bad. In fact, the video is so bad that it's hard for me to understand how Unsolved Mysteries, when they put the recreation video together, how they could even use that video to make the recreated video. It's that bad. It's really that bad. But I'm hoping somebody with a lot of brains with video can maybe clean it up and maybe dice out all the bad parts and put something together so it's something that's comprehensible, because right now it's just bad. It's staticky, it flips, it jerks, it goes, it fades, it just jumps. You can't see anything. So if any of you didn't even know that was going on, that's going on right now. Let me just catch up with these statements, then I'll go into what I want to say next about it. Blaze says, like, the person just walks away, but there's a rainstorm and they were barefoot. Looking for footprints and things, Blaze, if that's what you're talking about, yeah, I guess you could. I'm not convinced, in many, I don't know. As you know, Blaze, probably already, that I believe that very, very few of Unfound's cases are people who walked away. Very, very few. But I think I also know that people who are intent on walking away, it's not going to stop them if it's raining outside or if they're barefoot. So I just don't know. Because, it might be helpful. Maybe, footprints in the snow, things like that can obviously be helpful in any disappearance. In fact, I know, being that Sharman just mentioned Charlotte Paulus's case, I know that snow was a factor in that case, as far as giving away a few more clues as to what might have happened. But whether, I guess it could be something, but it's not usually something that I am looking for or asking about, but maybe I should. Sheree says, Gray Hughes is a popular true crime YouTuber. I really hate being clueless about these things. It's just that I am so involved in my own work that I just don't know some of this other stuff that goes on. I just don't. And it's not because I'm rude or anything else. I just have my own work to do. Carrie says the video is bad. Saying the video is bad is putting it mildly. Yeah, that's true. Blaze says trying to type with long fingernails. Okay, Nikki, do I do this full time for a living? I've heard you mention reporting in videos. Bravo for all of you. I'll be listening. I do this full time, Nikki. Yes, the answer is yes. Um, Michelle said I couldn't see anything with the pictures, but I'm just on my phone. Well, Michelle, if you're talking about the Kerstetter video, even if you're looking at on a 56-inch screen TV, you can't tell anything. Thank you, Indy. Um, temperature is kind of what you do when it's relevant, like mile per gallons, for instance. Yes, that's right, Cherie. Carrie, I would think weather road conditions could also possibly help narrow down how far someone could dispose of a body. Maybe. Ashley said she didn't know who Gray. Well, just me and you then, Ashley. I think everybody else knew, but me and you, Ashley, we didn't know who Gray Hughes was. That's not. I don't even know if that's a man or a woman. That's not a cut at him or her. I really just don't know. But the Dale Kerstetter video is out. Here's something else I want to say about that, and then we're going to move into the case for this Friday. The video is so bad that I have to believe that whoever kidnapped Dale, whether he was involved in it, of course, if you remember, there's either two choices. Either he really was taken as a hostage, had nothing to do with the theft of the platinum from that plant, or he was a conspirator in it, and that person, you know, turned the tables on him and killed him after the fact. But of course, Dale is still missing. But I'm inclined to believe that whoever pulled that theft off knew the video in that plant was that bad and that it would offer no information. That's how bad that is. That's the first thing I thought of when I started watching it, and I was like, what the heck is this? I'm inclined to believe that it even makes me think more than ever that whoever was the hooded man in that video, if you can even tell that in the video, certainly knew that plant, certainly worked there, which then leads me to believe that this person and Dale were in on it together. Pretty sure. That's how bad the video is. I think the person knew that they could go in there and they knew the video was bad and that it would be practically 100% unhelpful in trying to figure out what happened. Pretty sure. Karen, to be honest, Ashley, you aren't missing much. Okay. Okay, I'm not. I'm just not going to continue. Thank you, Karen, but I'm not going to continue that. I'm not here to um, make fun of other programs. Um, so I'll be interested. I'm going to guess maybe most of you have not seen the video yet, or even attempted to watch it. But it's bad. But I'm wondering when you do get to watch it, if you'll come to the same conclusion I did, that whoever pulled this off knew that the cameras were that bad. That's immediately what I thought of, and that may be something for maybe to post a poll or something now that that video is out. Either way, I can see why the police haven't released it for 30 some years. It's just unhelpful. I just don't think in its current state that it moves that case forward at all. You'd hope it would be better, but it's not. Um, Dale was on an island somewhere. This is my one case, Emily. Okay, so you think Dale Kerstetter took off, Cherie? I remember us talking about that way back when. Carrie says, makes me think they need to start talking to other security officers and anyone else that would have been able to view the videos. Right. I agree with you, Carrie. You'd think they would have done that, but, you know, who can say? Marcus, have you ever been in contact with police departments that are relevant to cases you covered? Once. And I'll be talking about that in the update episodes. As I continue to say, I don't talk to police departments because they don't tell you anything. They just don't tell you anything. and I don't have time to spend talking to people that aren't going to tell me anything. Okay. I know that, local newspapers, they'll go to in a disappearance case, they'll go and talk to them and everything. And you never hear anything you don't already know. And I just I have no interest in talking to people that aren't going to tell me something that I don't know, that I already know. Let me rephrase that. I have no interest in talking to people that are going to tell me things that I already know. I'm in the information business. I want to find out new stuff, not old stuff. I want new news, not old news. And all police departments are selling is old news. Um, that's why. That's why I go to the people that I do. The people that I talk to have a vested interest in releasing as much information as possible. And I know what police departments say to them behind the scenes. They tell my guests they shouldn't be talking to me. So I'm not, if okay, cops, then I have no interest in talking to you. Um, Paula, is it bad because it's old technology or just bad from the start? It just looks like it's a bad system, Paula. It just looks like it's a bad system. Now, why it could be bad? I don't. I mean, it is '80s technology, but video cameras in the '80s were okay. I mean, fairly clumsy, fairly rudimentary, but we've seen enough videos from the 1980s to know that you could get some decent video out of it. This is horrible. It just looks like there was something wrong with the entire system, is what it looks like. Michelle, technology back then still could have had clarity. Either the cameras were very bad or the type of video they were recording with was used many, many times without replacing them. That's possible, Michelle. Carrie, I do wonder how many times that video was duplicated over the years. You're kind of saying what Michelle says, but degrading it more and more. Otherwise, how did they know he looked at the camera? Is that what it is that bad? It's true. Michelle says, my family owned electronics company for 36 years. Well, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to post a poll in the discussion group about that video. And they'll see what all of you think about the video and the conclusions you come to it. Cherie says, happened to me this weekend. Had a disappearance all lined up, and law enforcement told them not to talk. Did you tell me about this, Cherie? I'm sorry if you told me and I forgot. I apologize beforehand. You're gonna have to. Maybe you did tell me about it. And once again, if I forgot, I apologize. But I'd like to certainly hear more about that, Cherie. So let's get to. Let's see. Did I miss anything? Newsletter behind the scenes. Speaking of which, we're now blah 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 blah. Okay. Let's talk about this Friday's case. It is a Florida case. We've come back to the state and I think we're going to be in Florida next week too. Coincidentally, covered a lot of cases in Florida, and it's not planned. That's just the way it's worked out. We're going to be talking about the disappearance of Julie Seay, Seay. This is a case that is on the Charlie Project. It is on NamUs. She disappeared December 23rd, 1988, from Daytona Beach, Florida. And the title of the episode is The Mystery Man. And I'll get to that in a second. The guest, I'm having her on again, Leslie Martin, who was the guest for the Donnie Martin episode. Of course, that was her stepson who disappeared in Michigan. But Julie Seay is her sister-in-law. Julie was married but then divorced from Leslie's brother. And that's why Leslie is back on the program again. Hello, Happy. And the reason this episode is being called The Mystery Man is because in the days and weeks before Julie disappeared, she was complaining both to Leslie, of course, this is 31 years ago, not quite, both to Leslie and other people, that there was a man who was harassing her. seemingly a guy that she worked with at this telemarketing firm that she was like one of these callers. Of course, back then that was probably much more popular than it is now, but that was her job. And there was a guy there who was continuing to harass her, wouldn't let her alone. The problem is that she never gave the name of this guy to anybody. Not to Leslie, not to her, not to Julie's own family or her family, not to her roommates, nobody. But even so, after her disappearance, the police focused in on a particular guy. And you're going to hear how, even to this day, they're not necessarily sure, at least Leslie isn't, necessarily sure why they focused on this guy. Because Julie never uttered this guy's name as the guy who was possibly stalking her, etc. She just said this guy's doing it and just kept the name to herself. And we do mention the name of this guy in the episode. We talk about him. We talk about the police talking to him. In fact, the police eventually went and dug up this guy's garage. This guy does have a criminal record both before and after Julie disappeared. Some of it being a bit violent. But still, we're not sure that he is the guy that Julie was talking about. Her car was found, no information there. She went to work, she was supposed to be going shopping, disappeared. It was a Friday. And then her car was found a couple weeks later. So that is why I am calling this episode The Mystery Man, because she kept talking about this guy but never mentioned his name. Blaze, maybe Ellie is close to solving the case. Talking to Sheree, maybe Sheree. Sheree says, happened to me this weekend. Yes, so much going on. So does that mean, Sheree, that you told me this happened, or does that mean you didn't? Once again, I'm probing my memory, and if I forgot, I apologize. Maybe we can talk about that after this program's over, this show's over. So that's this Friday. Julie Seay disappeared December 23rd, 2 days before Christmas, 1988. And I remember I would have been a senior in high school. Daytona Beach, Florida, a place that I've gone to a few times. The episode is called The Mystery Man. And Leslie Martin is joining us again. She is Julie Seay's sister-in-law. So I think that's about it, everybody. Got a lot of good discussions talking in tonight. Wished a happy birthday to my best friend Doug and to my ex-girlfriend Suzanne. Talked about the Tammy Mckittrick poll. Talked about Moray's statement that she posted in the group. We talked about the newsletter. Once again, contact me if you'd like to get on the list. My birthday last Thursday was good. Talked about doing a lot of work behind the scenes these days. And the people who were involved in some of those things. We talked about how this Friday will be the 157th episode and the 140th disappearance that Unfound is covered. Talked about a bit of an update on Kamisha Hollis. We have an update episode coming. And we talked about the Dale Kerstetter video that I hope all of you will get to see. And then finally, we took some questions from some of you. And then, of course, we finished up talking about this Friday's episode, the disappearance of Julie Seay from Daytona Beach. And once again, her last name is Seaw. Where was car found? It was found in Daytona Beach, Marcus. But it was found in Daytona Beach where she disappeared. And we do go through like what the cross streets were for that. That's true, Charmin. Ellie usually tells families not to talk. I know that more than anybody. Karen, I saved you, Duggan, a few fish. We love our fishing. Okay. All right, Karen. Well, I'm going to go. That's been it. An hour and 11 minutes. That's a pretty good show for Wednesday night. I'm glad we didn't have any technical problems, but I will see you, or you will hear me on Friday, 2 p.m. Eastern. And then we will get together on Sunday night for the think tank, probably on Facebook, but we'll see. Take care, everybody. Welcome to Ontario, Ed. Yeah, Karen, in September. In September. Good night, everybody. Thank you for watching. I always enjoy this time. Thank you for giving me a piece of your Friday night or Wednesday night. Thank you for giving me a piece of your Wednesday night. Good night.